Okay, we are off and running. Thank you everybody for tuning in today. Welcome, my good buddy Niko, diehard Patriots fan. He's repping the future. Today, a little bit of Drake May and Christian Gonzalez. But go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell the people who you are.
Yeah, what's going on, everyone? Nico Davis here, longtime Patriots fan from the New England area. Really excited to get into it with the Dynasty Doctor today. And let's have a good show.
Yeah, man, I'm excited. You and I go way back. One of my college buddies, and I think that's the thing about this channel and what I found to be really happy about is wanting to have my different friends on and talk about your guys' problems, talk about the things on your mind when it comes to Dynasty Fantasy Football, and we can break it down. So we spent a little bit of time before this episode talking about the things on your mind. I'm really excited to get into them. But first off, obviously, we got the big game this weekend, the Super Bowl, Chiefs versus Eagles. I think it's a game that no one is necessarily looking forward to watching. But do you have a quick pick? I mean, what are your thoughts on the game this weekend? I'm certainly not looking forward to it.
Yeah, I've honestly considered boycotting it, but we'll take any football we can get here. Obviously, I think the Chiefs are going to pull it off. I just think that's how these things go, and they're going to complete the three-peat. Obviously not the biggest Eagles fan, but I do love Saquon, and I think he's a great, great player, better person. So for that reason, I want the Eagles, but if I was a betting man, I would definitely be taking the Chiefs.
Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. I would love to see Saquon and Jalen Hurts get their first ring, and Eagle. But once again, it's neither franchise or one that I'm excited to root for. So we can go ahead and leave it at that. Just want to take a second and promote my Twitter channel or my Twitter page. Please go ahead and if you're watching this, go ahead and give me a like and a follow. Once again, this is a brand new channel trying to get this started, so I'll be across a bunch of different social media pages. Just once again, trying to have my friends on, talk about whatever is on your guys' mind. So yeah, with that, we can go ahead and hop right into it. You had mentioned before we got on that one of the topics that's really kind of hot in your mind right now, based upon some, other YouTube channels and podcasts that you've listened about some maybe guys at the end of the bench or some lesser known players that you're really excited this summer maybe to break out going into next year. So I would consider this maybe some buy low candidates. Um, so yeah, go ahead and tell me what's on your mind.
Yeah, so I think, in Dynasty, I tried to load up on receivers and then just take flyers at running backs. And I think one flyer I've taken at the running back position that I'm still pretty gung ho on is Jalen Warren,
Hmm.
just with Najee Harris being a free agent this year. And Jalen Warren kind of showing what he's done in the past, has that pass catching ability. That's just one guy. I think you can kind of throw out, kind of a flyer, a low pick, and maybe you can
Yeah.
get him on the cheap. And look, he's still obviously young, and he's shown he can do it before. And even kind of in a limited role, he's been productive. So Jalen Warren definitely one of those guys I'll be targeting if I need help at the running back position.
And I agree with that for just a couple of quick reasons. One, Najee Harris, I believe he's going to be a free agent this offseason, so who knows? He may be back, he may not. And if he's not, if he doesn't come back, regardless of if the Steelers draft a rookie running back or not, with it being such a deep class, uh, Jalen Warren immediately skyrockets in value under Arthur Smith. That guy loves running the ball. So I love this pick as a good buy low candidate now, especially with the uncertainty of Najee Harris. Who else is on your mind?
Yeah. So a couple other guys. I think another one is Jordan Whittington, just with,
Yes.
Cooper Cup being, they announced him being on the trade block. Um, so I think he just kind of showed in his role in a limited basis. He showed that he can play. He's definitely a baller. He's young. I don't think a lot of people are considering him. Everyone's obviously thinking Puka. Puka's going up the rankings and stuff. So I think Jordan is just another guy you can kind of take quickly. And then I got to throw in this third one. He's not as young, but I cannot believe the Pats let this guy go, man. Jacoby Myers, like, always productive, right? Like,
He
he's
won
just
me a
been so
couple
good
of
for
leagues.
so long.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I bought
underrated
him.
dynasty asset.
Absolutely. So yeah, let's start there really quick because I bought Jacoby Myers in a couple of leagues that I was competing in last year where he was cheap, put up, just really good numbers at the end of the season, just very consistent. I loved the targets. I don't care who's throwing him the ball when you're averaging almost double digit targets, 9 or 10 a game. That's reliable. And one of the things I really like is, or I think as a good buy low candidate, is I don't see the Raiders. The 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 Raiders have so many holes. They're not going to necessarily upgrade at the wide receiver position. They're going to upgrade at the quarterback position. They've been mocked to take a running back, even Ashton Genty in the first round. Although wide receiver is a hole, Jacoby Myers did well enough to keep the job next year. He will very well be could very well be their wide receiver one again next year with a good chance to be an upgrade at quarterback. I'm looking at probably Shador Sanders ending up with the Las Vegas Raiders. But even if they go ahead and they sign somebody, a wide receiver two with an upgrade, I believe they just signed Chip Kelly as an offensive coordinator. I mean, these are all things that are green flags for me. And even as a guy that bought Jacoby Myers last year, I would be into buy him again. I would be interested in staying on that train. And with Jordan Whittington, he currently is the number one trending player on Sleeper with the Cooper Cup News. He looks like he's already rostered in 73% of Dynasty Leagues, so I doubt he's necessarily available for you to go and pick him up. But I think you just mentioned him as maybe a buy low candidate. I could even argue that this could be a sell high candidate where he's the hot name right now. Now that he's the new wide receiver two, everybody knows Puka. We could scroll over here to keep trade cut for a second and pull up the dynasty rankings. Puka did just move up to the wide receiver 5 in terms of dynasty. I think he was about wide receiver 7 just a couple days ago when I saw. But you're not buying Puka. No one is selling Puka. But if someone comes to you and thinks Jordan Whittington is the guy, I don't know, where's your head at? Early second? If I was a seller of Jordan Whittington, I mean, you're not getting a first, but an early to mid second for, let's go ahead and take a look here. Now that we got Keep Trade Cut has their, oh my gosh, he's not even at 2,000. This is dirt cheap. So yeah, if I was a Jordan Whittington owner, I think I would be a seller right now but at the same time, maybe I could be wrong. He flashed in the preseason. Give me your last couple takes on Jordan Whittington here. Do you think he is a buy low? Do you think he's a sell high? I could see it either way depending upon what side you're looking at if you're trying to rebuild.
Yeah. I think just because of his age, I just try to get those, younger guys obviously in Dynasty as much as possible. So for me, I think he's still a buy low. Okay. I think if you sell high, I just, it really depends on your league and how tuned in, the guys are, because, we're in a league together that I think, people are this guy would be a lot higher on the radar, but then I'm in a league with some of my brother's college buddies and they're pretty casual. And I think if I floated out like a third or fourth round pick, they would take them. So I think it's obviously league dependent, but I just like acquiring young guys who are kind of like these flyers that have upside, and obviously Stafford kind of brings a whole different element into it, right? Because he's obviously old and he could be on his way out. I know he committed to next season. Yeah. But I mean, it's still McVay's system. I feel like McVay can get someone in there and get whoever's at the quarterback position will be productive. But I don't know. I see how you can argue both sides of it, but I tend to lean buy low just because of his age.
I think it really does come down to the value. For a third round pick, I would be into buy. I think that's obvious with the news. If someone's not up to date or they just, once again, this guy had 2 good games. An early third round pick that maybe a 10% chance of hitting, sure. But if I was selling, I think I would be looking for that middle to early second because of that same thing. Once again, I wouldn't be selling for an early third. I just mentioned I'd prefer to buy for the early third. So I think that's the gap that we're going to see, and I think we're going to see his value slowly rise Once keep trade cut kind of slowly updates, it's always a little bit behind. But if you have some friends in your league that use it as gospel, you can absolutely take advantage of them now.
I got one more name for you
Yeah,
that I'd love to get your prognosis on. I just thought of this while we were talking about Jordan Whittington here. Where do you land on Marvin Mims? I would love to hear where you land on him.
He is interesting, and as someone who is local to the Denver broadcast, I definitely hear a lot about it. I definitely hear that one of the things is that Sean Payton is looking for the Joker. That's the thing I keep hearing. Taysom Hill was Sean Payton's Joker, and he doesn't have that here in Denver. So can Marvin Mims be that guy? I don't think he can be that guy. I think the way that this class is set up, I'm going to keep circling back to this all summer for the next couple of months. This is a loaded running back draft class, and the Broncos are extremely weak at running back. So just because Taysom Hill fit that role doesn't have to be a tight end. It could be a wide receiver. It could be, I think it's more likely to be this kind of maybe pass catching running back. We're seeing just absolutely extremely deep class, like I've said over and over again. Marvin Mims to me feels like a guy that's slotted to be an all-pro return man. He's been an all-pro returner for the last 2 seasons. He hasn't really gotten the opportunity on the field. He almost reminds me of, I'll mention the classic name of Devin Hester, one of my favorite players to watch growing up. Amazing return guy, sucked at wide receiver. Super fast, could get down the field. It almost just seemed like he couldn't, I don't know if he couldn't catch, if his route running was poor, but Marvin Mims, these are different skills, and I'm not confident. I think the Broncos are also looking to upgrade a wide receiver. They're a team that's going to upgrade a running back, tight end, and wide receiver. They still got Courtland Sutton. So, best case scenario, they don't upgrade. Maybe slots in as the wide receiver 2 behind Courtland Sutton. Because if we look at who else is on the team, they really don't have a good number 2. Troy Franklin sucked. Little Jordan Humphrey's not any good. Devon Vele was like a 6th round pick. Everybody was hot and heavy on him, but I think Mims has the edge. If somebody was looking to buy, I would be looking to sell, and he's not somebody that I'm necessarily looking to buy. I think Jordan Whittington is, and obviously the Cooper Kupp news is, I think a lot of that. But I think I'm kind of off the Mims train, to be honest. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. Maybe the recency bias of him in the playoff game against the Bills is kind of clouding my judgment here because he kind of balled out in that game. Again, I just think Dynasty, young guy, he's 22. I know Sean Payton traded up for him in the draft and everything, so I was wondering, I thought he was going to have a great season last year, but I think you're right. He's played 2 seasons now, and he's only shown kind of that limited ability, especially, in the pass catching role. So, no, I agree with your sentiment there for sure. I was just curious because, he's an interesting player to talk about at his age and, how he kind of has these like blow up plays, essentially.
Yeah, I just had to confirm what you were saying. They traded up 5 picks. Because I remember they traded up to get Troy Franklin, and neither of these guys have really panned out. It just seems like, Sean Payton has a pretty short leash. I think he's also more than happy to be like, you're really good at this. You're really good at returning, and you're just going to return for me. I might have you run some wind sprints, and I think his success at the end of the year was maybe a little bit towards necessity instead of skill. I think that the team had no one else. But once again, I could be wrong. I think I do agree he's a buy low candidate. I remember towards the end of the year, he was on a lot of waiver wires. He was probably someone who was a free agent pickup within the last week or 2 of your season going into championship week. So if he's available now, if he's out there on your waiver wire, absolutely go ahead and pick him up. He's skyrocketed in value, and he's a good hold to see what the Broncos do. But he's not necessarily somebody I'm targeting as a trade. Maybe a late 3rd, but even an early 3rd with how deep this running back class is, I like the potential there for some of these dart throws.
That's fair. I agree.
Well, yeah, man, let's go ahead and move on to another topic that you brought up before. Before coming on today, you are a New England Patriots fan. Want to talk about the New England Patriots here and some of their team needs, how they might approach the offseason here. So I did pull up a website here just for overall team needs. Looks like they're obviously, extremely weak at offensive line. That was something that we knew. Drake May was getting absolutely obliterated, but was still looking fresh. That was why he's such a hot name in terms of Dynasty. After that, you guys need some weapons. Wide receivers, top of the list, and I do want to talk about T. Higgins here in a second as a potential trade target. Running back, I'm not as low on Ramondre Stevenson. I could argue he could actually be a buy low candidate. He's somebody that the offensive coordinator trusts. He trusts in there to rely on him. He's gonna block. He's gonna run his route. And I think trust is a big thing when you have a young quarterback. But yeah, you're the New England Patriots fan here. I mean, how confident are you this offseason? Where's your head at? You guys have a ton of cap space to spend. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, couple things you said there, in regards to the cap space, yeah, they've got a lot of it, and they need to spend, a certain amount. So they're definitely going to be buying players no matter what. I don't think there's a ton on the wide receiver market other than kind of T. Higgins and Chris Godwin. We'll go through some of those guys, but I'm surprised not to see defensive end listed here. They had a ton of trouble generating pass rush. So I'm very surprised to see that not here. I think that I'm kind of hoping they take Abdul Carter in the draft because I think he's one of the best players in the draft. And I think, Drake May, you got to get him more of a competent offensive line, but the kid can scramble. It's got to be better than last year. I think they were a 32nd ranked offensive line. I know for pass protection they were according to PFF. So, you got to get him some better help there. But, I'm wondering if they go Abdul Carter, but I don't even know if Carter's going to last till 4. So we'll see about that, especially now with Myles Garrett requesting a trade from the Browns. And they have the pick before. I know they're one of the 3 picks before the Pats.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, Drake May, freaking impressive season. What a stud. He's got a lot to learn, I think, just as all rookie quarterbacks do, but clearly can play the position, elevated a lot of his teammates. He made Butte kind of a relevant. Kayshon Boutte is like kind of a relevant flyer dynasty guy now. I've got him stashed away on a few of my bench spots. I wouldn't mind if they take Will Campbell. A lot of guys I respect on the kind of draft beat say that with Campbell, his arm length is a big deal. I don't know enough about that, I don't know enough about that kind of measurable stuff, but I saw an interview with Will Campbell and he definitely has the mindset you want. I think Vrabel's going to gravitate towards that. I think just touching on Vrabel real quick, I think Mayo just wasn't ready for the job. I think he got kind of not only the short end of a stick, but the Pats are totally talent deficit. It's going to take a couple good drafts for them to become relevant again. But I think, Mayo just didn't really show enough to really keep that going. And I'm really impressed. I wanted Ben Johnson, honestly, first and foremost, but
who didn't?
I am super impressed with who didn't exactly. And I think he's going to do some great stuff with Caleb, but I'm really impressed with the staff Vrabel's building around him. I'm hearing some good stuff about Josh McDaniels, about he was kind of working with other teams and learning their schemes, and he's going to kind of implement that stuff with Drake May, which is super exciting. So I overall very optimistic about the Patriots. Don't really know how they go about the offseason, but I think they can fill a lot of holes in the free agency, hopefully, and then I would attack one of the lineman positions at the draft. The Pats have shown they can't really draft receivers, so I would go lineman.
Yeah, I like attacking the draft through the offensive or the defensive line. Obviously, if Abdul Carter's there at 4, you're going to take the best player available. He really does seem to be the far and away best player in this draft. I'm not sold on Travis Hunter. I know he's a really great talent, but I'm really curious to see what he decides to do. Wide receiver, quarterback, cornerback. Excuse me if I didn't enunciate well right there. Um, has a lot of potential, but certainly you guys are weak in that offensive line. And the draft, hold on a second. I want to see how this. Boom. The draft is going to, or so much of the draft is going to depend on free agency, and that's obvious. You know, for any team, what they do in free agency will make a difference in the draft. If you guys do or don't attack the offensive line through free agency or the wide receiver, if you guys don't sign T Higgins or a hot name veteran free agency, obviously it's going to be a top need. Do you guys take Tet McMillan fourth overall? Probably not, but maybe they do decide to link Drake May with a young rookie wide receiver, for the next 10 years plus. But overall, I do agree. I really like the Mike Vrabel hire. I think he shouldn't have gotten fired. So I think and now it feels like he's going home. He feels like a more appropriate head coach than Gerard Mayo. No offense, and he made it. It just seemed unprepared. Threw into a terrible situation. You can't blame him for the job that he did. So, but you did go. But you did mention or bring up a good talk about free agent wide receivers, and obviously that is a need for the New England Patriots. We mentioned T. Higgins a good amount, and that's a name that we can talk here in detail in a little bit. But other free agent wide receivers that are on the market, how about go ahead and let's do this. Just say yes or no. I'll go down the list. Are you interested at the market price? Once again, T. Higgins is going to cost $30 million. Who know how much Chris Godwin is going to cost? As we go down this list, and I don't even know what this list looks like. Tell me, are you interested in these free agent wide receivers joining the New England Patriots? So let's go ahead and start off. T. Higgins.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Would love to see T. Higgins in a Patriots uniform.
Chris Godwin.
Definitely. Patriots don't have a receiver like him. Guy's a professional. Absolutely would love to have him in on the Pats. Definitely.
Yeah, he would absolutely be a great locker room guy. Amari Cooper,
Yep.
free agent. Well, what do you think about that?
If they got him on the right contract, maybe. But I mean, he didn't show much on the Bills, and the Bills needed receiver help. You know, they only really had Shakir, and it was kind of felt like Mac Hollins was playing over him in the playoffs, and
Yeah, I think that's when the money's right. Yeah, if the contract's right. Let's go ahead. A couple more here. Stephon Diggs.
um, I don't think he would mesh well with Vrabel, to be honest. I just
agree
don't
with
see
that
him.
one.
I don't see him on the Pats.
DeAndre Hopkins, if he left the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, again, if the contract's right, why not? He could be a target hog. Well, actually, I don't know at this point in his career he could be a target hog, to be honest.
That's tough. Yeah. Let's go ahead.
Not so much. I think Hopkins.
With the names on here, I mean, a lot of these free agents' names don't interest me. Mike Williams, Deontay Johnson, Keenan Allen, some of these older guys. Here's a name, though, that interests me. Darius Slayton on the New England Patriots. What do you think about that?
Would love Darius Slayton on the Patriots. I think he's always been underrated.
Mm-hmm.
The guy can take a top off of defense. He showed promise with Daniel Jones before. He's been fantasy relevant before as well. Actually, that's a sneaky signing that I could see really helping them out. I really would like Darius Slayton. That's a good one.
Yeah, and I think you could get him for cheap. I think he's someone that even on dynasty rosters for me is a buy low because he's a free agent. I've held on to him in a few leagues. Although his stock looked like it was tanking, I knew this summer that there was a chance for him to get a new opportunity, fresh life. Even if he's somebody that you don't end up holding on to, when a wide receiver gets signed to a new team, they're always the hot name. You could possibly sell them, if not keep them. These are great assets to have. So, but I really like the idea of Darius Slayton on the Patriots. I think that's a sneaky signing as somebody you guys could get cheap, reliable. Once again, a lot of these guys just go and just put in the work. each day. So, um, yeah, man. So T. Higgins, the hot name of the offseason. Well, I want to sit here for a second. I'm going to want to break down some trades of T. Higgins. So we're probably going to talk about him for the next 5, 10, maybe even 15 minutes. Um, what what are your thoughts? Let me hear it. T. Higgins on the New England Patriots. You guys give him $30 million. Are you for, let's say, 30 million in 5, 30 million in 4, 100 million guaranteed? Are you a happy man?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think one, he's shown he can do it. He's had those spike games for sure. With Burrow and on the Bengals, and he's everything you could possibly want in a receiver. Big guy. I have heard, who knows how legitimate this is. I've heard Vrabel doesn't believe in soft tissue injuries. Like isn't like a big like fan of that stuff.
Okay.
So and Higgins, that always seems to pop up in Higgins.
Yeah.
But I think that's people just overanalyzing and overthinking. I think if you're the Patriots, you've seen how poorly your past receiver draft picks have gone. I think it's actually somehow gotten worse. Like Tyquan Thornton, it was like okay, and then Jalen Polk and Baker. It's just not a good situation right now.
I mean, this past draft, gosh, the amount of memes that I saw about trading back and passing on Lad McConkey because the excuse
Oh my
of being
gosh.
the excuse of being that's too much of a Bill Belichick pick. We can't pick the short white guy, so we have to trade back and pick Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. And oof, was that a miss? And everybody's over here talking about Pop Douglas. Sure.
Role player.
You want to come to me with a third round pick for Pop Douglas? I will be selling all day. Um, he's not somebody that I'm looking. He's had the opportunity to break out. So because there's gonna be new blood in the wide receiver room. Yeah, I'm not buying any Patriots wide receivers that are certainly there right now. But man, has it been a tough couple years?
It really has, and I think T brings a ton of legitimacy to that wide receiver group. So I'm all for it. I mean, the guy can play the position, and it's not like one of those free agent signings where you don't really know what you're getting. I mean, he's shown time and time and again that he's an absolute stud. So I would totally love to see him paired up with Drake May.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. And soft tissue injuries aside, he's gonna command the market this summer. Now, if you were interested in
Mm-hmm.
trading for T Higgins, one of the things that Keep Trade Cut, for those of you who don't know, excuse me, about Keep Trade Cut, it's a great online dynasty asset. There are a good amount of them online. This is a popular. It's a crowdsourced one. So every time you log on, it'll ask your opinion. Choose this player. Choose that player. Things like that. So it's slowly updating over time. They did just go ahead and update their draft picks for the 2025 season, so you can enter in explicitly, hey, I have the 105, I have the 106. And this is new. These have just been entered in, so these values will start to change over time. But once again, we always make fun of the people in our leagues that use Keep Trade Cut as gospel. But it is a great resource to start the conversation when you're really not sure. Somebody says, "What is T Higgins worth?" I don't know. I don't know what is it's worth. How much you want to pay for him, but when you want to get the conversation going, you want to convince somebody of hey, this is a good deal, or don't feel like you are getting absolutely screwed. It's a great place to start. So if we look at T Higgins right now, looks like he's valued around the 105, the 106. So you're missing out in a super flex league on top one or two running backs. Tet McMillan will be drafted by then, probably one or two of the quarterbacks. If Cam Ward or Shador Sanders goes first overall, I have to imagine there'll be a top 3 or 4 pick. But really interesting when you break this down as a possible trade. Target. We could even look at some of the other positions here if you were interested in maybe comparing across the board to running backs here. If we look at like running backs with that same value, looking at guys like James Cook, Kyron Williams, Josh Jacobs would be valued cheaper. James Cook looks like 53. Yeah, that's about a dead even. James Cook or T. Higgins? I don't know. I might take James Cook. He just had like six.
Yeah,
He just had 16 touchdowns, something like that. So,
yeah.
James Cook or not James Cook. Let's say T. Higgins or Kyron Williams. Who are you taking in Dynasty?
I think that depends a little bit on where T. Higgins goes this offseason. Let's just like if he stayed on the Bengals, I think I would take T. Higgins. If he got put kind of on a, more if he went, let's say he went to the Patriots, I'd take T. Higgins. I lean wide receiver, a young wide receiver like that over a running back that has a little bit more shelf life on him for sure. I would go T. Higgins.
Now let's do this exercise. If T. Higgins is on the Carolina Panthers, are you taking T. Higgins or Kyron Williams?
I think I'm still taking T. Higgins, man. I was kind of excited to have Bryce Young end of the season. I thought Bryce showed some promise. I think he can play the position, and that's definitely a realistic spot for him. I think I'd still go T. Higgins.
I like it. So let's keep moving up the board here. We're getting into top 10, top 7 running backs. Let's say the hot and heavy name, everybody's darling from last season, and the hot name of the summer. If T. Higgins signs, let's say, to the New England Patriots for $30 million a year, are you taking T. Higgins or are you taking Bucky Irving in Dynasty?
This is a lot closer, in my opinion. Bucky's younger. Bucky he had a great rookie season. The Bucks just seem to have kind of a system that's working right now. I think initially gut feeling, I think I'd go Bucky here.
Okay. That is tough. This is really where we're starting to get into the weeds of it. Let's say going back to the draft picks. Right now, you want to buy T. Higgins. You don't know where he's going to be because let's just say today people are freaking out. You got some real degenerates out there making trades already. So let's say with the news today that we still don't know where T. Higgins is, if you own T. Higgins, are you selling for the 105?
I'm not. I think I'd keep T. Higgins here. And why is, again, I always like to lean. I just kind of value the wide receiver position a little bit more than running back in Dynasty, just because I think the wide receiver position has a little bit more longevity.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, T. Higgins is a little bit older, but I don't think there's a lot of surefire wide receivers in this draft. And I don't know, maybe I haven't studied the 2025 class enough. I know it's deep at running back, but I would rather just go with the known commodity here, T. Higgins.
And I think I agree with that approach. I think this is a draft that's strong at running back. So 105, you're not going to get the wide receiver 1 or the running back 1. You're probably going to get the running back 2 because of the landing spot, or maybe the third, depending upon where quarterbacks go, or once again, maybe that wide receiver 2. And as we've mentioned, it's not a great wide receiver class. So to have a guy in T. Higgins who has a good chance of signing as a wide receiver 1. He's ranked as a Dynasty top 15 wide receiver, and he's still only 26 years old. I think people think of T. Higgins as this guy who's 28, 29. A lot of wide receivers are playing well into 30, 31 years old and being productive for Dynasty, and you really want to look at Dynasty as a 2 or 3 year window. You don't want to sit here and say, oh, well, 5 years from now, T. Higgins won't be worth anything. 5 years from now, your league will probably be folded, because that's how Dynasty goes. So you got to think in a 2 to 3 year window. So I agree. I think if I either had the 105 or had T. Higgins, either one way or another, and I think regardless if I was rebuilding or not, even if I was rebuilding, I would be more interested in T. Higgins, because I think 1 year from now he's still going to hold value, and I like somebody who's a little bit more of a sure thing over gambling on the rookie. And yes, T. Higgins has had his injury concerns, but when that man is healthy, that man is a beast. And I think that's what
Mm-hmm.
I want. I want somebody who is going to give me that ceiling, is going to win me championships. Um, yeah, man, give me your parting thoughts on T Higgins here. Once again, we're talking about T Higgins as a potential, addition to the New England Patriots this summer. Is
Mm-hmm.
really an exciting name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think as a Patriots fan, obviously, I want the Bengals to fumble this and get let them hit the market,
Yeah,
and hopefully the Pats give them a bag. The Pats can afford it. They're so talent void everywhere, especially on offense. It would just be great to have someone like T Higgins who could kind of let Drake May get into his rhythm, like you saw last year with Drake May. He just didn't have, he had Hunter Henry, who's a fine tight end. I love Hunter Henry, but he just didn't have anyone on the outside that could do stuff that T Higgins could do. So I think overall, if we hear that he goes and to the Patriots and Twitter explodes or X explodes with hey, like let's
yeah.
keep in mind the Pats have I think it's like over 130 million cap space, and like they got to spend it one way or another. And I think you could spend it in a lot worse ways than giving a bag to T Higgins.
And I agree. And I think when you have a young rookie quarterback or now guy going into a second year, you want to give him that safety blanket. And Hunter Henry is great, and Kayshon Boutte and Pop Douglas is great, but T Higgins is a different animal. So yeah, I support the New England Patriots attacking the wide receiver position in free agency. Well, yeah, man, I'm gonna go ahead and transition here. We'll take a step back, catch our breath, take a take a quick drink. One of the things I like to do when I transition here is just have a little bit of fun. Gonna pull up a little meme, one that I do off Instagram. This is just when I come across something funny, something that catches my eye. It's a lot of you do get a lot of fantasy football memes, and I don't think they are appreciated enough. So would love to, yeah, give them an audience. That was the first one that I saw, and I lost it. So,
Oh no,
um,
not Diddy. It's just
not Diddy. Um,
these are
yeah,
great. These are great.
these are good. Anne Hathaway is Derek
Oh my.
Carr. There you go.
Uh, JC Troy Aikman. Kirko.
Kirko Chains. Nick Cage. Farva. I haven't looked at
That's
this in a
awesome.
while. Got both of Hemsworth in there.
Oh my god. I wonder if Tyreek's gonna get traded. That's another interesting one.
Is he gonna play? I mean, does he want? Oh, Jada Pink's there.
Yeah.
Does he want to? Does he even want to still be here? Hey, there we go. All right. So, nice little laugh.
That's awesome.
But yeah, man, Tyreek Hill. Gosh, let's get to Tyreek Hill in a second. We're gonna get to wide receiver rankings.
Yep.
We'll be able to break those down. But I do want to take a step back here. Once again, because I am the Dynasty Doctor, I like to consider myself a bit of a teacher and help people out. I like to do a quick advice section. So I'm gonna try to keep this one short and sweet. But this is really about, and what I want to talk about right now is how do I approach a trade? It's the off season. I'm interested in making a trade. I'm interested in upgrading at a position. How do I do that? I love using Keep Trade Cut and the power rankings and the data that they have of the team positional rankings across the board, because the reason is if I'm going to target a specific player, say I'm interested in buying a running back, I never go into the trade with a specific person in mind. I never say I really want to buy Bijan. I really want to buy Jahmyr Gibbs, because maybe the Bijan or Gibbs owner is weak at running back. They cannot give that position up. What I do is I come to Keep Trade Cut and I will target the teams that have the highest inherent running back value. That means overall they have a surplus of running backs. They have more running backs than they know what to do with. Across all the teams in the league, they're strongest in that position. So I'll go to them and I will target one of their running backs, and then I'll look at that same team and I'll look at what positions they're the weakest in. So if somebody's number 1 at running back here and number 11 in quarterback, I'm going to offer them a quarterback for a running back. Once again, we're targeting a position of surplus that they have and offering them a position of value, or once again, someone that they're inherently weaker in. So just go ahead and use these power rankings to see where teams are stronger and where they're weakest in. If you're interested in targeting a tight end or a wide receiver, go to the team strongest in tight end and wide receiver, and then offer them the position that they're weakest in. So once again, this guy here, second in tight end, but the 12th ranked running back. So if I wanted to go and buy one of their tight ends, obviously I'm going to offer them a running back. That is their position of need. They will just inherently or relatively value those positions differently than other teams in the league. So it's a great starting point. Really, just how I approach trades, and I think it can be a value for anybody out there. So really want to transition here to our final topic today, Niko, about Dynasty wide receivers and their value, wide receiver rankings. We just talked about how the draft picks have been released, the draft pick values. You can look at what is the 101, what is the 102 going for, and where do my players contend. But really just want to break these down. I'll probably ask you some questions within tiers. Who do you like? Are there guys that buy low, sell high, whatever it is? Would just love to get your opinion on this as a guest. So you just brought up Tyreek Hill. Let's go ahead and see, because I have no idea where Tyreek Hill would be. Oh my goodness. Did I miss him? Wide receiver 34. That is... that feels a little low, but as a guy who I feel like could retire at any minute and is approaching 31 years old, we got Mike Evans rated higher than him. What do you think for Tyreek Hill? I see Jerry Jeudy and Josh Downs, one above him and one below him. Are you selling Tyreek Hill for Jerry Jeudy or Josh Downs in Dynasty?
I'm not. I'm still a Tyreek guy. I think that's pretty darn low. I think I've told you I kind of go off of my own rankings. I have a different set of rankings that I use, and I still have Tyreek at wide receiver 23.
Okay.
I would not sell him for Jerry Jeudy. I think Tyreek could have a good bounce back. I mean, he broke his wrist in the beginning of the season, I'm pretty sure.
He did. I think it was when the cop slammed him on the ground.
That's crazy.
I think the thing about Tyreek Hill is, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, is you want that ceiling. You want that guy that will win you a week. I mean, I see a guy 2 spots below, Keon Coleman. Obviously, we're looking at some rookies here, guys that have potential to break out, but these are not league winners. Jerry Jeudy was at the end of last year, but who knows who's going to be throwing him the ball. Tyreek Hill, when he's on the field, just can do some special things, and the Dolphins really seem to be dependent on Tua and his health, but I think you got to give him a chance. A guy who was drafted as the wide receiver 1 in redraft last year, now being ranked as the wide receiver 34 in Dynasty. And once again, these are overall Dynasty rankings. This is not, positional rankings for a 1 year going into next year like redraft. But it is interesting to see a guy really take a hit here. Can I actually see, where was he 6 months ago? Positional change, wide receiver 8. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
As a guy 1 year later, only 1 year older, I think he's said he wants to play out his current contract and then retire, but I think that's another 1 or 2 more seasons, but that is a fall off if I've ever seen one.
Mm-hmm.
Damn.
Absolutely. I've got him right next to T. Higgins.
I'd rather have T. Higgins than Tyreek Hill in Dynasty.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Just age-wise.
T's all the way up at 15. Yeah, he's about to get the bag and be the wide receiver 1. Mm-hmm. Let's take so I think the top of the leaderboard is pretty, standard. I think this middle tier here of 4 through 7, if you want to have CD or Brian Thomas or whatever it is, to each his own. Brian Thomas is the hot name, so I don't really want to sit here and break that down. Everybody's going to have their own opinion. We really won't know until next year when we see him do it again. So if we scroll down here, let me stop right here. This was something that I was going to post on Twitter. Marvin Harrison versus Lad McConkey back to back. I mean, if we look at their graphs here, you can see Marvin Harrison is absolutely tanked. You can see Lad McConkey is looking like a roller coaster, like a spaceship about to take off. They are 2 points apart from each other. Who would you rather have?
Um, I personally, I love Lad. I traded up for him in one of my dynasty drafts, and I kind of did the opposite of what the Patriots did. But I really like Lad, but I'm still taking Marvin Harrison Jr. here. Why? I just think he's younger. Again, I think he's got more. I don't think the Cardinals used him in a way that was effective for his skill set. So I would still be taking Marvin Harrison over Lad. I think Lad, maybe I'll regret to say this, but I think Lad kind of was at the ceiling last year. I think Marvin just has so much more room to grow.
And I think you could.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, you could absolutely say that. And it wouldn't be crazy to say you're buying Marvin Harrison at his lowest, and you're maybe buying Lad right now at his highest. And the Chargers have been a team mocked even to T. Higgins, because Lad fits perfectly into that slot role, and it's very hard to be the wide receiver one. Quentin Johnston doesn't look like he's going to be that guy, but teams love to have a big X receiver on the outside. So Marvin Harrison is definitely more the prototypical wide receiver one. Can he take that next step? Can the Cardinals get a new offensive coordinator? Who knows? So yeah, no, that's a really, those are, it's a really tough debate, but I do agree with you. I think I would lean a little bit of Marvin Harrison because of his potential. I think he's actually somebody I'm trying to buy right now in a couple leagues, because his value seemingly has never been lower.
I agree.
Scrolling down here, this is a lovely group right here. So if I highlight them here on my screen, I want to look between Xavier Worthy at wide receiver 21 and Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 27. I don't know if I like any of the names here. So we got Xavier Worthy, wide receiver 21. Then we go Jamison Williams, Chris Olave, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, Terry McLaurin, and Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 27. I think in redraft, I would take Terry McLaurin with the year that he had. Jaden Daniels really looks like the man. They've been projected to go after Cooper Kupp and attack the wide receiver position. Who knows? They're definitely weak at wide receiver 2. But if, say, they were to draft a rookie wide receiver, I'd be all in on Terry breaking out again next season. But in Dynasty, we're looking at Terry McLaurin now being 29, almost 30 years old, comparing him against the likes of some 27, 26-year-olds, even Chris Olave and Jamison Williams, 23 and 24, and Xavier Worthy as young as 21. I think you see my screen. I think you can see these rankings. Niko, what is your thought? Because I have no idea what to think of these guys. I could see any of these guys being at the top, being at the bottom, being top 10 next year, being outside the top 50. No idea what to think here.
Yeah, I think Worthy I'm super high on, man.
Really?
Yeah, that's my guy. That's my guy.
Okay.
Another guy I traded up for in one of my dynasty leagues, and I just, he started out so rough, and I was like, man, I made a really bad mistake. We've got another Sky Moore situation here.
Yeah.
And then, he really has been turning on lately, and again, could be recency bias, but that AFC Championship, man, he balled out. He made the Bills really regret passing up on him. Guy's fast as all hell, and he can run routes, and he's only 21, I think. So I think sky's the limit. You've got Patrick Mahomes you're paired up with, great offensive system. Yeah, I'm really high on Xavier Worthy. I think I would put him above pretty much everyone there. J-Mo I really like as well. Jamison Williams, I just think what an awesome season he had. Another guy who can take the top off of defense. So those two guys I'm super high on.
No, and I like that take. It's interesting. Xavier Worthy feels like someone that fits into that role, and Andy Reid can do a lot of damage with. And we probably would assume that Rashee Rice sees some kind of suspension. I would guess a 4 to 6 game. I don't think we're going to see less than 4. Could be up to 8. Who knows? That's typically what we would see. I was shocked to see that he got through this year unscathed. Plus the injury that he's got to recover from. I don't know the rules if those type of things stack. But Xavier Worthy's somebody that I think we're all excited about going into next season. As you said, he started off really slow, and he's just really that gadget player. They give him a lot of those touches behind the line of scrimmage, but I think I would love to see him start developing as a route runner, getting more passes 5 to 10 yards in front of the line of scrimmage rather than 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. But when a guy breaks the record at the combine for the 40-yard dash, you really just want to get the ball in his hands. Couple guys here, a couple of 27-year-olds, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf. DJ Moore with the Chicago Bears, Ben Johnson coming in. Does Rome Odunze take that next step? What does Keenan Allen do? DK Metcalf and the Seattle Seahawks are going to have a new offensive coordinator. We seem to see the breakout of Jackson Smith and Jigba. If I made you make a decision between DJ Moore and DK Metcalf right now, who are you picking?
I'm probably going Metcalf there. I guess, they are the same age, but I just really like Metcalf as a player. DJ Moore is a little bit more of he's not an unknown. The guy can ball out, but I just really like DK Metcalf. That's a guy who he's got the size and everything, and we've all seen that picture of him in college.
Yeah.
Like he's a freak of nature, I gut feeling just says DK Metcalf there.
And I agree. I do like the DK Metcalf move. I think although we saw JSN have the breakout, I still think DK Metcalf's the guy. I still think he's the wide receiver one in that offense, the big body down the field. I think they're both going to get their touches. And I do have a bit of concerns about Rome Odunze kind of taken over for DJ Moore in that X role. I think, Keenan Allen fits better into that slot, but what does he ultimately do? There really seems to be a lot of mouths to feed. So I think we're going to see some DJ Moore versus Rome Odunze back and forth. But I think Metcalf and JSN complement each other well. Unfortunately, Metcalf just really hasn't ever had that breakout season. I think we've all been waiting for him to have that, top 5, really does he ever become that guy? But he's just very reliable year in and year out. I think reliable is the word for Metcalf.
Let me ask you a quick question here.
Let me hear it.
I would love to hear your thoughts on Jordan Addison. I know that was kind of the tier that we spoke of before this, but I was just looking at my rankings, and again, I'm not going off KTC. I have different rankings from a website that I prefer. They've got him at wide receiver 12 for Dynasty. Super high. What do you think about that? What do you think about Addison?
I think he's going to be a career wide receiver too, because he's stuck behind Justin Jefferson, and that's the truth. He's, until one moves on, he is not the superior talent, and that will hinder him. And obviously you have a rookie quarterback coming in, or I guess second year, J.J. McCarthy, who I project to be the starter next season. But he's never going to surpass Justin Jefferson, and you could argue that Justin Jefferson, might take the double teams and open him up. But if I scroll down here on Sleeper, okay, hasn't had a top 15 season. He's sitting around wide receiver 20, so he's still a top 24 wide receiver. He's a wide receiver 2. I like that, about 100 targets per season, but that's it. Honestly, I can see, the touchdowns regressing. TJ Hawkinson has been hurt recently, so he's averaged about 1,000 yards, less than 1,000 yards each season, 900 yards each season, about 9.5 touchdowns. I like that yardage numbers, and I think we're going to see the targets, reception, yards stay pretty consistent. 100 targets, 70 receptions, 900 yards. I think that's a pretty standard for a wide receiver too. But does he continue with that 9 or 10 touchdowns? In the Kevin O'Connell offense, maybe makes me optimistic that he could, but I think we've seen his ceiling. I think until he comes out of the shadow of Justin Jefferson, I mean, this isn't a guy who's had to deal with injuries. Started 17 games, started 15 games, and had almost identical stats in back-to-back seasons. So I think we've really seen the best of Jordan Addison. I think we've seen his ranking almost kind of level out. I think wide receiver 20 here on Sleeper is appropriate. I think the age might be the factor of what you're seeing. If some people have him higher and Dynasty wide receiver 12, gosh, that's. I just think as a guy who will never be more than a wide receiver 2 on his own team, he is capped. T Higgins is the best of the best when it comes to wide receiver 2s, and even he struggles to crack the top 15. So
Yep.
I think we're seeing about the best that we can get from Jordan Addison in term, and maybe even his ceiling. I don't even know if we could really see much more, and honestly, I think we'd be more likely to see a regression.
That makes me feel better about that trade I was describing to you before this.
I traded last offseason, I traded Jordan Addison and a third, I think it was a third, for Jonathan Taylor. And I was shocked. The guy, like, I didn't think I could get that. I was weak at running back, had a surplus of wide receiver. And I remember the guy asked about Jordan Addison, and I was like, this is like, I had like 12 legitimate wide receivers on my team. And he comes to me and he goes, hey, is Jordan Addison available? And I'm like, yeah. Like, yes.
Yeah.
He's absolutely available. So I had so many, I was so deep at the position. So, yeah, happy to get Jonathan Taylor out of that. I'd still do that. Still absolutely do that today. Yeah. What's your thought?
Gotta love
What do you
trades
think?
in
What do you
Dynasty.
What do you think about Jordan Addison? I mean, I just went on a bit of a ramble there. Sounds like
Yeah.
maybe I'm more aligned with what you're thinking, but Dynasty wide receiver 12 is way too high in my book.
Yeah, I think it's definitely high. I think obviously he's got the pedigree. He drafted in the first round. He's clearly got game. But I think you're right. It's not like Justin Jefferson's leaving that place anytime soon. And I think that's your target hog right there, and that's obviously going to cap Addison. So I agree with your sentiment, and it makes me definitely kind of question that ranking for sure.
Yeah, let me take a step back here and let's look back at. So we're looking at Dynasty rankings here. So Dynasty wide receiver rankings. Let's see outside of T Higgins, what the first wide receiver 2 is that we come across. Any idea off the top of your head? Probably Addison. Maybe no, it'd be like a Devonta Smith. It'd be like an AJ Brown, Devonta Smith. But let's look at some realistic wide receiver 2 candidates in terms of Dynasty ranking. How would you overall have these guys? So as I scroll down,
Is JSN considered a wide receiver too?
no, or I would say DK in this because of if we're
DK?
going by keep trade cuts rankings of Dynasty. Like, do you have JSN or DK higher in your rankings?
I probably have JSN higher. I
Okay.
definitely have JSN higher.
So
Yeah.
once again, outside of T Higgins, who is the prototypical stud of a wide receiver 2 on a team, the first wide receiver 2, Devonta Smith, a wide receiver 18. Then you go down. There's Jordan Addison, a wide receiver 20. So you're really looking. Then you're hitting Worthy, who is right now wide receiver 2. If you put Rashee Rice above him, Jameson is wide receiver 2. DJ Moore, in terms of keep trade cut rankings, is 2. Metcalf 2. Okay, so yeah, I think wide receiver 20 in terms of a dynasty ranking. If we were looking at startup, value comparing across the board, I think that's pretty appropriate for a guy who is capped on his potential. I think it really is.
I agree with that. I love Smitty too. I think Smitty's, that's probably the best wide receiver 2 you could possibly want.
I agree. Devonta Smith was interesting, and he had a lot to do with the Dallas Goedert injuries. And you see that a lot, obviously, when a tight end goes down. You'll see those smaller, slot guys break out. They're often fighting for the same number of targets. But Now he's someone that's really interesting. I even think, I mean, if we look at AJ Brown, 27.6, that's not old, but it's not young. And Devonta Smith is 26. I feel like he was a little older when he came into the league. They're only a year
Yep.
and they're only a year and a half apart. Excuse me. Only a year and a half apart in terms of age. So that's interesting.
That's how we keep all these guys.
You really don't have a young or an old guy when it comes to the Eagles. Like a lot of teams do. They like to cycle younger and older. Um,
Hmm.
yeah. Let me throw one more name at you. We're coming up here in the end of our time. I really appreciate you coming out again. Um, Let me throw one
Absolutely.
more. We're talking about wide receiver twos here, and it got me thinking about a guy. I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to find him. I'll also go ahead and pull him up on Sleeper. Um, okay. So, Darnell Mooney. Let me take a step back here. Darnell Mooney is, oh my gosh, wide receiver 46. Okay. Darnell Mooney, Darnell Mooney, Jesus Christ, I can't speak. Darnell Mooney is wide receiver 46 in terms of Dynasty. Had a really strong, I would say, kind of breakout season coming over from Chicago. I like his potential as the wide receiver two in this offense. I'm not sure if the Falcons would look to upgrade that position. And I do like the breakout, and I'll say breakout of Michael Penix second half of that year. What are your thoughts on Darnell Mooney? He seemed like somebody that was a sell high candidate end of last year if you were a championship team needing a flex, fill in. But is he somebody that you see going into next year is, going to be putting up the same numbers that he did this year, or do you think last year is the best that we saw?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think I don't think they're going to upgrade the position.
I agree.
I think they've invested so much on offense already. I think they clearly have some holes on defense that they're going to want to plug in the draft and free agency. I would probably say I like Mooney for the right price. Obviously, kind of a cop out answer. But like Pitts hasn't really shown much. I don't think he's going to be a target hog or anything. I like Mooney. He's at an age where I wouldn't throw a ton of draft picks at him or anything, but I think if you could get him for the right price, he's absolutely someone I'd go after. I mean, the guy can definitely he could play.
Yeah, he really showed last year, and I mean, I'm looking at his stats, and we just spoke about Jordan Addison, and he has very similar stats to Jordan Addison, but he only has 5 touchdowns instead of 9 or 10. That's the reason why
Hmm.
he's fallen to about wide receiver 30 in terms of overall half PPR rankings instead of wide receiver 20, which we see from Jordan Addison. That's when I talk about the possible regression. Um,
Hmm.
really did seem to have one of his best years. Looked like he had a pretty good year in Chicago a couple years back. But this is a guy that stayed healthy, and like we said, I don't think the Falcons are going to target this position. So I think he's an underrated, possibly a buy. I mean, I hate to say a player's a buy right now at this time of the offseason, but I think they're a team. Some players make me nervous. So I've like running backs right now. You don't want to buy running backs because it's such a strong it's such a strong draft class. You don't know what team is going to draft a day two running back or a round four early day three running back, and next thing you know, Josh Jacobs or who's ever stock tanks. What are you working at? Their stock tanks because of their teams decides to take a swing at a day two or an early day three running back, and because it's such a deep class. But I think wide receivers, you can buy wide receiver twos on certain teams and feel confident that the team isn't going to go crazy in free agency, isn't going to go crazy in the draft. I mean, I don't think the Falcons are going to do anything in this draft that's going to scare me away from Darnell Mooney. I think he really showed last year. And he just seemed to fit so well. He just looked so good as the wide receiver two in this offense. I'm really optimistic for him next year for sure.
Yeah, he was really productive for sure.
Well, all right, man. I really appreciate you you coming out today and joining me today. Is there anything else you want to talk about? I feel like we touched on all of our bases, everything that we had in mind.
Yeah. I guess last things I want to talk about.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to shout out Jahmyr Gibbs. I took a huge gamble on him in last offseason. I traded a bunch of picks for him, and like he is such a stud, man. I mean, this guy, he can run the ball, he can catch like crazy. Like I just he's like one of those guys that you just watch, you know, on TV and you're like, holy cow, like he
Yeah.
pops off the screen. Montgomery got injured. He picked it up, showed that he could be, kind of a true RB1. Um, Man, I love his game. I love everything about the way he plays the position. I'm a huge Lions. That's kind of my NFC team is the Lions.
Yeah.
So I love Jahmyr Gibbs. Great dynasty asset. Only 22, obviously. Gosh, I'm so pumped to have him on some of my teams.
Well,
So
yeah.
I just
Let's.
want to shout him out.
That's awesome. Let's sit here and talk about Jahmyr Gibbs for a couple minutes. I like that. No, this man is
Yep.
an absolute stud. Has proven there's a reason he is a top two dynasty running back. So the thing about this running back class, for those of you guys who may or may not know or really don't know or haven't been doing a lot of research into the upcoming draft class. Ashton Genty, the unanimous 101 in not only one quarterback leagues, but I have to imagine superflex leagues. A lot of people have him slotted in already as the dynasty wide receiver three. Straight up, third best rookie running back to own in dynasty. And because Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson are the only studs in this league. And if we look at keep trade cut here, Jahmyr Gibbs has surpassed Bijan Robinson, the unanimous number one running back in Dynasty, the person to have first round startup pick. Have to imagine you're in a one quarterback startup draft, you're taking this man top five, no questions about it. I sold him a couple like 2 seasons ago for like three first round picks, and I still don't think I got enough value for him. This man's going to be a stud for many years to come. But let's go ahead and say you were interested, Niko, in I guess buying Jahmyr Gibbs. So
Yep.
you are obsessed. You want Jahmyr Gibbs. You want to offer the 101. That's not enough. That's not enough. So let's say you have the 103 and you want to offer a 26 for ooh. I don't think the Jahmyr Gibbs owner is doing this. The 103 for in a 26 first for Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think
I'm not doing
I
it.
don't think you're getting that done. Let's say because
Yeah.
we always talk about. I think that's the thing in Dynasty is you can use these trade calculators as a basis, but when it comes to the elite of the elite, you have to throw everything to the side. You're not getting elite talent for less than three first round picks. I don't care what those picks are. You want to put the 101, okay, I'll take a first and a second. That's the kind of like headspace where I'm at. So if we say you're the 103, yeah, that might get it done. You're the 103 owner and you give up the 103 and your next two first round picks for Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yeah, I think maybe, I don't know if I just haven't done enough research on this 2025 class, but I understand it's deep at running back. But like after Gianti, I don't like know if there's any like guaranteed studs in this class. Like,
I I
it's just
agree,
kind of
and
it's still tough for me.
that's no, and I agree with you because there really isn't, and even Genti is. I mean, he could be nothing. We're projecting him as the dynasty wide receiver or as the dynasty running back three, and we're projecting if he goes to the Dallas Cowboys in the first round, his stock is going to absolutely explode. But we saw it last year. I mean, the first four or five running backs that were realistically drafted in your rookie draft all did nothing. Jonathan Brooks, Trey Benson. These guys were struggling last year. Audric Estime, and then Bucky Irving, who probably gone in the back of the third, early fourth. I remember looking back at some rookie drafts and being like, where the heck did Bucky Irving get drafted? Now, I've heard some scouts say the running back 11 in this class would be the running back 2 in last year's class. And, you can't make that comparison. But at the same time, we don't know what these guys are going to look like. And I think to your point is you're still only drafting one running back. Say you draft a running back at 103. How do you know that's the guy that's going to break out? Maybe the guy that got drafted 203 is the guy that breaks out because of his landing spot. Now, you're probably taking the guy that got drafted earlier and the guy that probably got drafted to a better landing spot, but that's not always the case. And you see a lot of guys who the last couple of years just happens to fall into the perfect scenario. So I'm looking at this draft class to take more shots. I think I want more draft picks. I want, I would trade back from the 103 to get 2 or 3 picks, within 10 or 12 spots to have more chances because
I like that.
Because once again, it's like, I think you could get a similar value at 103 that you could at 108 or 107. You just don't know. And that's the thing about such a deep class is outside of Genty, who's the unanimous 101, who knows? The guy at 103 might break out just as much as the guy at 203. So I think Jahmyr Gibbs really is a sure thing. Gosh, unless I was absolutely looking to blow up my team, he's really somebody that just looks to be a workhorse for years and years to come. Even if he tore his ACL, I think he's somebody that, I'd be trying to buy. Just looks like an absolute freak in the NFL and just looks to be someone that's going to be around for a very long time.
Definitely. And it's funny when you do an exercise like this. I think overall, what it makes me realize is I kind of, unless I've got a clear rebuild going on, I'd almost always rather trade picks for kind of established players. I don't know. I always prefer the obviously, that depends on, the actual trade details, but I almost would rather take the known commodity of the player than the draft pick. So I guess that's just kind of what I'm thinking in the back of my head as you go through this.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, and one of the big things about Dynasty is what is your team structure? Are you competing? Are you rebuilding? Are you a year out? Are you 3 years out? I mean, if you look at your roster and you think I'm 3 years away from competing, maybe you do trade away Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, the 2027 draft class looking pretty good for wide receivers. I don't know if you've heard the names Jeremiah Smith or Ryan Williams. College football, we got some absolute studs in the 2027 draft class. But that's another topic for another day. But yeah, so much of your team structure, rebuilding, and competing has a lot to do with it. But absolutely, I agree with you. If you are considering competing, I love the approach of trading draft picks for assets that are sure, especially when we get to the point where free agency is cleared. You're waiting right before the rookie draft when draft pick values are the highest. And then, you can flip the 103 for a stud running back or a stud wide receiver veteran that's already on a team. I mean, if we just pull up a quick thing, I bet you could trade the 103 for Drake London. Yeah. You're taking the 103 if you're competing, you're trying to win in 2025. You're taking the 103, you're taking Drake London.
Taking Drake London, especially with what he's shown with Penix.
All day. So and obviously keep trade cut. Looks like they agree with you. The points aren't too far off. But somebody out there might make that trade. Somebody who's rebuilding. People get excited about draft picks when the rookie draft comes up, and they forget how good these veterans are. And it's absolutely a time that you can take advantage of people. Absolutely. Well, with that, man, I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. Niko, thank you so much for coming out. Just really appreciate it. Going to go ahead and transition one last time over to my Twitter page. Go ahead, throw me a like, throw me a follow. Social media pages on Twitter. This is going live on YouTube, but we're going to cut up some reels. But hopefully you guys had a good time. Maybe someone out there listening, you could be on this channel one day. You could be on this channel one day. You could be my guest. We could break down your team. But Niko, any parting thoughts, man? Any parting wisdom?
Yeah. I just want to say thank you for having me on the show. I love doing this kind of stuff. It's great, connecting with you, shooting the crap, and I think last parting wisdom I have is let's see Drake May get some wins, man. He deserves it. I want to see them build off of him. I always when we had Mac Jones, I was like, man, we can't win with this guy. We need an alien quarterback.
Mhm.
That's how you win in the NFL these days. Is you need these alien quarterbacks, and I think Drake May has that potential. He can do it all. So I'm really excited to see what the Pats do.
Yeah, man, you really want a guy that can elevate your team. I think that was the thing that we saw with Drake Mays. Even when the team around him struggled, he looked good, and he really elevated the team around him. And that's all you want to see. You want to see a leader, and he's so young. I just think he has so much potential, and the future's really bright for the Patriots. I'm really excited to see what you guys do this offseason. So yeah, with that we'll go ahead and end it at that. Thank you everybody for tuning in, and hope